Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Under the Sun and Moon with Michelle and Kes. I am Kes.
I am Michelle.
How are you?
How am I?
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a tough month.
Yes.
It's actually been a tough several months. March was a hard month.
Mm-hmm.
April was a hard month. I didn't expect April to be hard, but with everything with school with you, it was emotional and it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And May I knew May was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Your dad's birthday is in May,
Mm-hmm.
and graduation. So
Yeah. Graduation. His birthday and graduation just happened.
Together, days apart.
I had an awards ceremony for my college on his birthday, so I was out towards Syracuse for we were there from Thursday to Sunday. So Thursday was the awards ceremony, Saturday was graduation, Sunday we cleaned out my storage unit and came back because my husband and I are moving starting tonight.
We assume.
Ish, yeah.
The lease gets signed.
If the lease gets signed tonight, we will start moving things tonight.
Yeah.
And then it's just, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
In general.
It's been very challenging. I don't even know how else to say it.
And
it's just been really challenging.
And 2 years ago today, we got his diagnosis. You remember that?
Was it the 25th? I thought it was the 24th.
No, it was the 25th.
It was the Friday before Memorial Day weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that we got that diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that sucks, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really, there's just so many, milestone, I guess, or banner dates related to his overall condition and his downfall and
Mm-hmm.
And what happened, you know?
I feel like
So today we're going to talk about grief. If we haven't stated that already, we're going to talk about grief today. I know it seems like an odd topic because we just had graduation and it's really exciting.
Yeah, and I'm also like I said, I'm moving into a new apartment, which is also exciting.
Yeah.
But
I feel like this is just sitting behind us constantly.
Oh yeah.
So this is one of the topics that we knew we were going to discuss.
This is a topic that we knew we would kind of do a series
regularly
about.
Yeah, this is going to be hit on regularly, absolutely.
So this is probably the first episode of the series, I would assume.
I would assume too. Yeah.
So I feel like to kind of get a ball rolling really quickly, I feel like I have more milestones related to his condition more than I do to, the actual day that he passed away. Is that weird?
No, it's not. And I think that's an important thing for us to discuss.
Mm-hmm. Because, the day that he passed away is by far one of, the worst days ever. But it
was like a release.
Yeah, I have other days that are equal to that level of suck. It was also another reason it makes it really difficult for me personally is because he passed away on mine and my husband's anniversary for when we started dating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was our 2-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another reason that it's a horrible day.
Yeah.
But today is weird for me because
today was weird 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got that diagnosis of FTD-ALS.
Yes, frontotemporal dementia with ALS.
Yeah, and that was
a neurodegenerative disease.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that was, you were going to say?
It was kind of the moment that I realized that he's going to die.
Up until that point, we had been led to believe by the 15 healthcare providers he had seen before that that there might have been a dementia element, but most of the healthcare providers we spoke to said he needed occupational therapy, he needed speech therapy, he needed cognitive therapy.
He needed antidepressants because...
He needed psychotherapy. He had, just for background really quick, and we'll probably talk about this again and again, not just today, but over time, he had a head injury. My husband fell. He was traveling for work. Several people have heard this story. I won't get into the deep details of it, but he was traveling for work, and he was staying in a hotel that he was told to stay in by his boss, and it had snowed very lightly that night, and they did treat the parking lot for ice, and then the sun came up and things melted, and then it got cool again, and there was ice again, and he went out to his rental car to get ready to go and do his management at a project that he was doing. And he slipped on the ice badly, it turns out.
Yeah.
He actually saw it on the security video after the fact. He went airborne, feet in the air.
He didn't break skin, did he?
Yes.
He did?
Yep.
Okay.
He had a scab on the back of his head. So he landed on his back, hitting his head, which bounced up off the pavement and hit again.
Yeah.
And that was when everything started.
That was March
9th,
yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why March begins to be a really difficult month.
Yeah.
There was also a lot going on when he hit his head. March, it was just a stressful month in general, which is why I didn't realize that the head injury had done more than I thought.
Yeah.
Because I really...
Well, had done more than he thought, too.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he didn't realize what was going on.
Yeah.
Although he had some inclination that something was wrong.
Like
he was searching for words, and he knew that speaking had suddenly become a problem for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, you guys were, because I was in school, you guys were packing up to move back to New York during that time, right?
Ish. Yeah. There's actually, we had originally thought we were moving to New York. Then he got offered a job in New Jersey, so we were going to move to Pennsylvania.
Right.
But we were still going to be close enough that we would only have been like an hour and a half away from family and roughly an hour and a half away from you. So he was negotiating yet a new job. He changed jobs a lot because that's what they do in environmental consulting. Apparently you don't get promoted very often. You just need to leave the company and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were doing an interstate move, and a tornado had come through, and we had roof damage to the house and the barn, and so did lots of other people.
Yeah.
There's just a lot going on, so we didn't know how sick he was. So March is a pretty loaded month. It's just been a really hard couple of months. And I didn't expect it to be as challenging as it's been.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing, is how grief just kind of like, hi, I'm back.
Yeah, it's never really, like, I say this in my my thesis paper that I got an award for. But grief doesn't go away, it just changes.
Yeah, it's constantly there.
And, like, as a pet peeve of mine, which, like, totally understandable if you feel this certain way about it, but it's from my research. The idea of getting over grief does not exist.
No. You don't get over it.
No.
You just move. You move
with it.
Yeah,
but
you move through it, you move with it, but it doesn't go away. And I know this is a really new experience for you.
Yeah.
Because your dad is a significant person in your life that you lost.
Yeah,
and you're young.
This wasn't like the first significant loss I had,
yes,
but this is, well, I'm saying like Graham was significant to me.
Oh, that's true. Graham was a big deal to you. That's right. Your father's grandmother, maternal grandmother. Yeah. That was a big loss.
My friend in high school that I lost, like he wasn't family, but he was still a really close friend to me.
I think it's very nerve-wracking to kids when another kid dies.
Right. But this is 100% the biggest.
Yes. And probably will be until I die.
Yeah, which I'm not going to talk about.
Okay.
But
fine.
Sorry.
No.
Like,
I'm just saying that my grandmother died when I was 16, and I lived with her. We lived in my mother's home. I grew up in her home, which I think I had mentioned before. She was the woman that was a professional seamstress, and I was very close to her. We moved in with her when I was 5.
Yeah.
And so she was sick. She had diabetes, and because of that she smoked, so she had heart attacks and strokes and congestive heart failure and other problems related to the diabetes, hardening of the arteries and diabetic neuropathy. And she was just pretty much sick in one way or another from 1979 until she died in 86. And
sure.
I took care of her a lot. My parents worked full time, and I learned how to give her insulin shots and did her other medications like her nitro patch and a couple of other things, and I started helping her cook dinner, and then I was cooking dinner, doing all the laundry, just taking care of the house and taking care of her when I was in school, missing school to take care of her because she couldn't take care of herself that day as a young, preteen and teenager. So I know, my point is I know from experience that, the experience that I had when I was young, that this just kind of, it stays with you, and you learn how to live with it and carry that memory. But it's painful.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still fresh enough for us that it's still pretty painful.
Yep.
Your dad.
I feel like you know what I'm about to say. When I talk to my friends about it, and specifically, like, when I bump into friends or people who still have both of their parents living, whether their parents are together or not, that doesn't matter. But usually when I run into somebody who still has both of their parents alive and I talk about losing my dad, they're like, oh my God, I know what it was like to lose my grandpa or my grandmother. And I'm like,
nope. Yeah, unless you were raised by your grandparents.
Right.
And that you were extremely close to them. They were your parental figure.
Yeah. If they were your parental figure, sure. Yeah, 100%. But in other scenarios, it's not the same thing.
No.
But they
won't know that until they go through it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Like speaking, like, I will say this a million times and again, but my capstone involved interviewing other young adults who had lost someone who wasn't a grandparent, like was a parent, a sibling, a friend, like somebody close to them.
Somebody younger, somebody you wouldn't have expected to have
because that's
passed away.
That's another thing. When
we don't mean necessarily young, although some of them were very young.
Right.
But
like
when you're 20, you don't think your dad's going to die.
Right. Or I say this
for the most part.
I say this as kindly as I can. Usually with grandparents, because they are older, you expect them to die sooner.
Right. Which I was going to say, like, even if, let's say your parents are of two different generations, and this is not unusual where mom is younger,
sure,
but dad is much older. If you're 20 and dad is 75, it's not unexpected.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's not painful.
No, but I
think there's a difference when it comes like out of left field for you. I was 26 when my father was killed in an accident with a tractor.
Yeah.
And I really was not expecting to be 26 and have to help my mom plan a funeral and get my father's remains back to New York State because they were living in Kentucky at the time, and then figure out a way to get my mother moved back to New York and my sister and my future brother-in-law and set up in an apartment. And your dad and I really took care of all of that at 26 years old.
Yeah.
At least on the New York end, while my sister and my future brother-in-law, now my brother-in-law, were taking care of things on the Kentucky end. And mom was doing everything she could, but it's really unbelievable to try to manage things logically when you're going through that level of loss, when you're losing a life partner.
Like, I mean, not like your situation, but one of the people I interviewed lost their father to cancer.
That's right.
They are early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
The father was early 60s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to this person, and they had to, like, up and clean out his house immediately afterward because there was no one there to take care of it anymore.
Right.
And they finally were able to have, like, a service or a funeral kind of thing, like, this year, because he passed away during when COVID was starting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was right at the beginning.
I think, like, they finally had this service for him this year, and I remember talking to them in the interview about, like, how it was after.
Yeah.
And they said, like, they moved back in with their mom for a little bit before getting their own place with their partner.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they had to go through and, like, clear out his house immediately.
It's an enormous amount
of
change.
Like, that, it was super quick.
Yeah.
And then with another person that I talked to, they lost their aunt, who was very young.
Yes.
And
to violence.
Yeah. And this aunt was living in a rental property owned by the person I was interviewing's parents.
Right. Family,
So immediately, loss of income was one of the things that this person experienced because...
loss of a family member.
Yeah, loss of a family member.
That they were close to. It was mom's sister.
Yep.
It was violence. So they had a crime on the property.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Police involvement. That's a lot of stress. And this person was young. How old were they? They were...
mid-20s.
Yeah, when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a huge thing to go through. To have your parents go through it, it's not an isolated... I think that's the thing about grief and loss is that there's so many layers to it. And that's part of what makes it reverberate continuously outward, especially in these situations where it's unexpected, where it's someone who's not elderly.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying it's okay.
No.
You get to a certain age and so what, you die. I'm not saying that.
No, yeah.
I'm just saying that there are... What we've experienced is a litany of circumstances related to the loss, first the long-term illness, and then loss of your father, as these people did, that continues to reverberate to this day.
Yep.
And probably will now for the rest of definitely my life.
Yeah.
Most likely yours.
Oh, it will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember... like, speaking of, like, different circumstances, I'll talk about my friend from high school really quickly. I was 16 when he passed away. Mm-hmm. He was 17.
Yeah.
There is not a single idea of how he passed away.
Right.
Because I remember when I was finally told about it, it was, like, the next morning after he passed or something.
Mm-hmm.
And...
It was a rumor.
It was a rumor... that he had committed suicide.
Yeah.
Which turned out to not be
completely not be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that this rumor came out was because there was no evidence of, like, anything actually, like, happening.
Not only that, but the rumor was created by other children. It was not created by the individual's parents.
No. So, like, he had an autopsy done and all that stuff, and they couldn't find
still could not figure
anything.
It out. Yeah.
He just quite literally dropped dead in his room for no apparent reason. But I feel like even if I had a choice to have Dad, like, not affect me as much, I don't think I would choose it. Because I have not experienced as funny as it seems, I have not experienced so much growth and change and just life-altering stuff since, like just now. I have...
Yeah.
If you ask me what kind of person I was Well,
2 years ago. Let's say 2 years and 1 day ago.
Yeah, 2 years and 1 day ago, if you asked me what kind of person I was, I would not be able to tell you. Because I not only do I not remember, probably because I blocked some of it out.
Sure. Well, there was a lot of trauma.
But also because it's so different to who I am now, I feel like.
I agree.
And I'm not saying I'm, like, a top 10, like, perfect person, because nobody is. That's not how it works.
No, but it forced you through a window where you had to do a lot of self-evaluation very quickly.
Yeah, and I still go through that.
You know, a lot of people are doing that when they're in college and they're in their early 20s, but this is like that times
10,
something. 10 times 100, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Because we lost everything. We lost our home.
Yep.
We lost the ability to get ourselves into any kind of a home of our own, apartment, anything.
I lost my car.
You lost your car.
Oh, my car. Yeah.
I lost my retirement. I lost my savings.
Yep.
I became a widow at 48 and I've had to completely start over. I lost my job while he was sick, and I couldn't get another job because I had to take care of him because he couldn't take care of himself. My full-time job became taking care of him, and that was before we even knew what was going on.
Yeah, and something else that I feel like I skip over a lot, I lost loans for school.
Yeah, we lost just unbelievable levels of financial stability. You know, because at the time that he was on hospice, we were literally trying to figure out
how to get me
scrambling.
They were
trying to figure out how to get you back on campus
in like 2 weeks
for your junior year, because I couldn't get a parent loan anymore because my credit had been destroyed,
and I didn't have any credit.
Yeah, and we had almost no income.
Yeah,
thanks to workman's compensation.
Yeah,
to this day.
Yeah, it's
New York State workman's compensation. I'm just gonna say that.
But yeah, there's a lot that we have lost that I feel like kind of not necessarily gets brushed over, but people just don't really think about.
Yeah, I think that, well, that's one of the things about grief and loss and death in particular, is that what I and you both have run into is that people make assumptions that there must be some kind of income.
Oh,
she must be getting Social Security, or there must be some kind of a death benefit. You had a workman's compensation case. There's a death benefit. There is. They've never approved it. It's still sitting in limbo to this day.
It's been 2 years.
It's been 20, almost 21 months.
Yeah.
Or life insurance, people just, they make assumptions.
Right. Or they, like, even for me, they assume that I'm working, which I am, but I'm working it's weird. People have expected me to work a very specific kind of job since Dad has passed away. Because they have this idea of, well, some people have this idea of just me keeping busy.
Yeah, I hate that.
To, like, quote unquote cope or quote unquote get over grief, just to kind of make time fly.
And that is some people's way of coping with grief and loss, is to not, because if they think about it, it'll make them so sad that they can't function. They want to be busy, and that's fine.
But
however, we were so busy while he was ill. Things happened so quickly. I mean, he had symptoms that showed up every day.
Yep. He had symptoms
and these were not just like a cough.
No.
Or a weakness, or he would sleep more. This was dementia. This was frontotemporal dementia. This is not like Alzheimer's.
No,
he had compulsive behaviors that he couldn't control.
I remember that
he was compulsively eating. He was compulsively changing his clothes. First, it started with changing his shirt. Then it was changing all of his clothes.
Changing his shoes,
putting multiple pairs of shoes on, trying to put boots on over sneakers or slippers on over his boots.
Tying shoes too tight to where he can't get them off, so then he tries to, like, untie and retie the shoes over.
Yeah, he was tying in shoes over and over and over again. And
then it was walking outside, like, randomly
Yeah, he wouldn't disappear necessarily like off the property, but I never knew where he was. And if I didn't know where he was, I didn't know if he had fallen again or if he would hit his head. I found him in the hot tub one time with all of his clothes on.
And his cell phone
and
in
his phone in his pocket.
That's how that went to.
Yeah, that's how the phone died.
Yep.
His watch on, his wallet in his pants, everything, so it was exhausting. And it happened every single day the entire time he was awake.
And it wasn't even, like, there were new symptoms that showed up every single day.
I don't know how I didn't lose weight.
I thought you did.
No.
Oh, okay. I definitely did.
Yes.
But that's also because I'm the opposite of binge eating when I'm stressed. I don't eat when I'm really stressed. Yeah. Which neither is good, by the way. Don't think that's good. But I think, like, even when he had the new symptoms show up every single day, with the already existing symptoms that he knew he had, they were manifesting and morphing and changing all
constantly.
The damn time.
Constantly, yeah.
He could not sit still.
No.
And not because he didn't want to. It was super involuntarily.
Yeah. He had no control over it.
And it was, oh my God. I think
so when people talk to me about, you need to stay busy, and I would be like, I need to take a 6-week nap. I just need to get some sleep. Yeah. I was so tired.
I remember, like, the summer from, let's see, about 2 years and in 3 days, I started my internship. Through the college. I started on May 28th.
It was the day after Memorial. Was it Memorial Day or was it the day after Memorial Day?
I think I started on Memorial Day.
I think you did too.
So I started on Memorial Day because I worked for a wedding photographer who she didn't necessarily take all holidays off because she didn't want to or she didn't have to, which was fine. She worked on her own schedule.
Yeah, if you photograph too, you might end up working a lot of holidays. I know that in my business, part of what we do, with sewing is we do a lot of craft shows and we end up working a lot of holidays.
Yeah. So
the weekend after Thanksgiving, I'm not shopping. People are shopping with me.
Right.
I'm not shopping.
Right. Yeah. So on May 28th, 2019, I started my internship. From that day until I ended my internship on August 15th or 14th.
It was right. It was shortly after your birthday, yeah.
Yeah. I was bouncing back and forth between Syracuse and Albany because I had a living situation, which did not last. I am not getting into that.
No.
So I was bouncing back and forth between Syracuse and Albany, and when I was here, I was helping you take care of Dad.
It was all hands on deck.
Yeah, everybody was helping.
And at that point, we knew he was terminal.
Right.
We were trying to get his neurologist wanted a bunch of tests done to rule out other things to firm up the diagnosis, which we never got an actual firm diagnosis. We just knew what the doctor thought it was. And I researched that particular topic and decided that the doctor was correct.
Yeah.
And I still, agree to this day. But there have been a lot of odd things going on in terms of the fact that it was a head injury that triggered it, and people claiming that a head injury can't do that. And
then they started trying to figure out if genetics played a factor into it.
Although he had no family history of this kind of thing whatsoever.
I've come to the conclusion that there isn't.
Right.
Because, the family history, there's no
none.
trace of it anywhere.
No.
But also, because of the research that you and I have both done.
Yeah.
They're in a... think of just the general pool of ALS cases in the world. Sorry, the U.S.
Sure, let's just go with the U.S.
The U.S. 50% of those cases are triggered by environmental factors.
Which can include trauma.
Right. From the research that I've done. It's also quite similar for frontotemporal dementia.
It is.
The numbers are pretty close together.
Yeah.
But then there's
they just can't nail it down to anything in particular.
Right. But there's also the few tying factors that bring FTD FTD and ALS together.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a specific gene. You know the name of it?
That's correct. It's the C9orf72 open reading frame. So chromosome 9, open reading frame 72, repeat expansion, is one in particular that ties those two diseases together and shows that they're actually related.
Yeah, but still, I'm focusing on this partially to make myself feel better because you know the genetics freak me out when it comes to this thing.
Yeah.
But also because I just don't see how genetics could be a factor.
It was so clear.
Mm-hmm.
It was so clear that he was okay before he hit his head and he wasn't afterward.
Right, because
there's so clearly no other history in his family of anyone having ALS or any of the other, some people refer to it as a spectrum disorder, the FTD ALS spectrum, and you'll see other diseases in there, like, for example, Huntington's disease. Parkinson's, or they call it Parkinsonism or Parkinsonian-like symptoms, depending upon the situation, and you might see things like PSP, which is progressive supranuclear palsy, which is the condition that's highlighted in Zoe's extraordinary playlist.
Yeah. Wow, good reference.
Hey, I'm not as old as you think I am.
You're not as old as you think.
But anyway, yeah, we don't see any of those things.
No.
In his family history. There is Alzheimer's in his family history.
Right, sure.
And although it is a type of dementia, they're not the same. They're not related.
No.
He had his memory right up until the day he died.
Yeah.
He knew who everyone was. He knew everything he knew.
That is actually something that I have had to correct so many people on, because when I tell them the frontotemporal dementia part of it, they're like, oh, does he recognize people? Does he remember everything? And I'm like, he remembers every single thing that he could possibly know.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, that's not how it works at all.
His memory was totally intact.
Yeah, he was very aware, which can actually, with FTD, some people cannot be aware. They can be very, very sick and have no idea that there's anything wrong with them, and that's a paralyzing thing for the family and the caregivers.
Yeah.
But in terms of our grief and really the PTSD, the trauma associated with these diseases is the symptoms, tied to the condition, and not just the loss of him, but the loss of all the things along the way.
And also the things that, like, in terms of his condition and the things that affected me, I feel like there's, like, I'm trying to figure out a good way to explain this. Like, there are some things that are... You okay?
Yeah.
I feel like, obviously, like, memories are triggering. Items are not as triggering for me, believe it or not. Like, things that belong to him don't trigger me in any sort of way.
In terms of triggering you, in terms of making you feel sad or feeling grief, like symptoms, as opposed to memories.
Yeah, and I think that's because I'm not a very big materialistic person. I mean, at least I don't think I am. But,
right.
Let's see.
You haven't had an option to.
That's
You've
true.
lost a lot of things.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, people are triggering to me sometimes. Because...
Yeah, I can.
And, like, not even people that I necessarily know. Like, I wanted to tell you this a few days ago. But the night of the academic awards ceremony on Dad's birthday, and preface this, I don't believe in gods or higher beings or, like, fate or any sort of thing like that, but there was a split moment on that night where I was like, am I sure? Because there was a person that we were parked outside the college, and we were just sitting, relaxing for a little bit after the ceremony, and this guy drives by on a Suzuki motorcycle, wearing jeans, a bright fluorescent orange t-shirt, and a red helmet, and he waves at me.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm gonna throw up.
Yeah, because that's,
That's the splitting image if I didn't see his face. But I had that moment.
Especially the orange t-shirt. Yeah, because my late husband, Kes's dad, was partially colorblind. He could only see things in the red.
Yeah, he was red-green, right?
Well, he could not see greens.
Oh, true.
He could only see things in the red to yellow part of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And in particular, the color that he could most clearly see was orange.
That's why it was his favorite color.
It was his favorite color.
Because he could see it.
Yeah, and that was another feature of his illness, as he was becoming more compulsive and couldn't control the changing of the clothes thing. He would also only wear bright orange or bright yellow t-shirts or t-shirts that had bright yellow in them. One of them was the fire company, the local volunteer fire company that he was a member of, that has like almost a goldish yellow in the t-shirt, and they had a t-shirt that color, and he would just
wear it all the time.
Yeah, I actually was looking for donations of t-shirts, because that and his that bright orange t-shirt that he had, I couldn't literally wrestle them away from him either. He was still very physically strong, and I would be like, I need to do laundry.
That was something that really bothered me, actually, because a lot of the people that we were talking to in terms of signs to look out for to know like how close he was to passing away, one of the main things that they told me was when his strength decreases is a big sign. Yeah. And it nenever decreased.
No,
ever.
He was really strong. I was wrestling with him on the day he died.
Yeah, I remember
because he kept trying to get out of the hospital bed.
A trigger warning really quickly. When I was in the hospital with him, the day that he passed away, it was in the morning or something, he had a seizure. And I was holding his hand. And when he had that seizure, he like started shaking and stuff. And I 100% believed for a split second that he was going to break
your hand. Yeah.
Because that's how tight he was holding it. And I was like,
he was very strong in general. Your dad worked out a lot.
He was also a really big guy.
He loved feeling strong, as people thinking of him as being physically strong.
He was 6'1" or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he I saw him as being like big and cuddly because he was my dad.
Yeah, but people were afraid of him.
Yeah, because they're like, your dad is a giant. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, my husband's 6'4".
Right. So,
like just big, tall men are something that I have been around all the time. But other people, when they saw Dad, they were like, dude, he's huge. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't see it as being weird.
I know if it's normal, like, you don't, yeah. But anyway, people thinking that weakness was a sign that his death was imminent. And that was also a misunderstanding, misconception, let's just say, that people have about the ALS portion of his condition, because most people with ALS have an onset in their limbs.
They lose
Your
a lot
father's
of muscle mass.
onset was what was called bulbar, and so he lost the ability to swallow and was losing the ability to breathe on his own. Swallow in particular, though, before he had much limb weakness.
Right.
The only reason he was weak and in the hospital with a catheter on the day he died was because he hadn't eaten in almost 6 days.
Yeah.
And he couldn't stand up anymore. He would stand up and then he would collapse. So we were trying to keep him in the hospital bed so that he didn't fall to the floor and break his legs.
Right.
But he wasn't strong enough to stand, but he was definitely strong enough to wrestle.
Oh yeah. And it was
exhausting. It was a horrible day.
Oh yeah.
It was not peaceful.
No.
He was in pain.
Constantly. Yeah.
Probably just until maybe an hour or two before he died. It was just a horrible day.
And there are. I don't want to.
And so we keep going through these things. We keep reliving these. Part of it is the PTSD, but just there are so many triggers when it comes to grief, these memories, these anniversaries.
And also, sounds are a big one for me.
Yeah.
Because, again, trigger warning. Just the way that he sounded is... It gives me nightmares still. Like, I can't.
The breathing?
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't think about it. And it's just like certain things will sound remotely similar, and then it hits me, and I'm like, I can't.
That's normal.
Do it.
I had that with my Uncle Charlie.
Oh, really?
For a long time, because I watched him die.
Oh, yeah.
And he had lung cancer that had metastasized and gone to his brain, and he had a lot of difficulty breathing. I mean, it was very labored breathing toward the end with a lot of fluid in his lungs, similar to what your dad had, because, well, Paul couldn't swallow anymore, so fluid was draining, and it had nowhere to go, because it's a normal reaction that you do. You just swallow all day long to redirect the fluids that drain from your head, your sinuses, into your stomach.
As I drink water.
But he had lost that ability, and so the fluid was going into his lungs, and it's a pretty ugly sound. It was really tough.
Yeah.
I would have to say that the 6 months, March through September, are harder months for me in terms of grief. Even though his memorial service was in October, our anniversary was in November, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Christmas was his day.
Yeah, it was a big day for him, but he was super happy, and we try to keep it that way. I just feel like spring and summer, unfortunately, are heavy with a lot of grief-related memories for me related to him and his condition.
For me, too. And it's hard because there's a lot of, like, really exciting things that happened during that time, too. Like, Wyatt and I got married in July. My birthday's in August.
Graduation
happened in a few days ago in May.
Yeah. You're going to start school.
I'm starting school.
You're going to start a postgraduate program. Post-baccalaureate program.
But that, man, I'm surprised at how late that's starting, honestly. Totally unrelated.
But it's just, these past few weeks have been extraordinarily challenging to get through. I have not been sleeping well.
Excuse me.
My stomach is a mess a lot of the time anyway, as you know. I have a lot of digestive problems, and I feel like it's just been worse lately. We've been trying to get out, walk more, get more exercise.
Yeah.
It's also hotter outside, which makes it harder for me because I don't tolerate the heat, as you know, at all. My body just...
It's hard for me, especially when it's humid, because then I need my inhaler.
Right, we both have asthma. Yeah. But we've been trying to deal with it. I think we've been coping pretty well.
I
don't know what coping well means sometimes.
I think that in the general idea of coping with grief, as long as you are not doing anything to hurt yourselves or others, you're doing pretty okay.
Yeah, we also had our dog put down.
Yeah. In
3 weeks ago? Is it almost 4 weeks? How long has it been?
I don't remember. It was like...
Let me look at a calendar.
Sure, okay. I think it was April something? I don't know. For context, Mom's looking at her planner that she carries with her.
Yeah.
I don't think it was May. But I, for the life of me, can't remember.
I think you're right, but I'm not. Yep, Jack was Thursday, April 29th. It'll be 4 weeks this Thursday.
Ugh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's almost time for his ashes. They should be calling us.
Oh yeah, it's been that long.
And he was
Dad's dog.
Yep, he was. He was Dad's dog.
And
that was difficult.
Yeah, because he, like... I feel like we actually talked about this in some ways. I feel like taking care of Jack was almost the same way of taking care of Dad in some cases. Even though Jack was a dog. But Jack needed, like, constant attention and constant help with things. Like, he could walk generally on his own. But
he had difficulty.
He had a
lot of arthritis. He had tumors.
He would stop eating because he couldn't swallow very well.
Yep. Like, we were really nursing him along for, well, at least the last probably 14 to 16 months of his life.
And it just, I believe that it hit a point where nobody could do anything to help him out anymore.
No, and he was in pain.
All the time. Yeah, he would whimper and cry and just, I'm not happy about it.
No.
But that was a really difficult decision because also, I took down my exhibition on the 23rd. My dog got put down on the 29th, and then finals started super soon after that.
Yeah, it was like a race against time, everything.
It was just like...
But that was a lot of grief. It brought up a lot of... I don't know what the word is. I guess just... is it related grief?
Like a domino effect kind of?
Like just feeling like I had lost your dad all over again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about losing Jack and having that be a trigger for grief related to your dad.
Right. And it was also... It's almost just as weird losing Jack as it was to losing Dad, because now, like, there is this empty space.
Yeah.
Again.
There's a huge empty space because we had a dog for 13... We had 2 dogs for almost 12... No, 11 and a half years. 12... 11 and a half years. 11 years.
Yeah.
And then, because we had his sister... Annie.
She was mine.
Yeah, and she had to be put down in December of 2018.
Yeah.
So that was also happening while your dad was sick.
Yeah.
But we went from having a guinea pig and 2 dogs and a cat to just having the cat at this point. And she's
very quickly.
Yeah, and she's not doing well.
Yeah, she's 18.
She's 18.
Yeah, because I'm going to be 22 in August.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's like 4 years between us.
Yeah.
But it's weird because I feel like in the place that you and I live right now, there's a lot more space. Mm-hmm. That just feels weird. And also...
Because the dog isn't there.
Uh-huh. And like, we dog
when you have an elder dog too, I think your life is kind of it became built around it. We would time everything we did so that he wasn't alone for too long.
Right.
You know?
We would never be at the store for too long. Like if we were going out to if you were going out to meet with a client, I would stay home with him.
Yep.
Somebody would go to the laundromat and then somebody else would stay home with him. It was just a lot. But I feel like even it's kind of funny because we dog sit sometimes for my cousin. He'll come into the apartment with us and just chill. Mm-hmm. But even then, like, that dog is wonderful. He's such a sweetheart and I love him. But that dog is not Jack.
Yeah.
And we know that. Mm-hmm. It's very apparent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
It's just, like, when I see, can I say the dog's name? Does it matter?
Diesel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
When Diesel comes and hangs out with us and he drinks out of Jack's dish, it's Jack's dish.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, even when the cat drinks the water out of Jack's dish, it's Jack's dish.
Yeah.
The cat has her own water bowl, but because she has mobility issues, I think it's just easier sometimes for her to drink from the dish that's on the floor.
Yeah.
And we can't put her dish on the floor.
No,
because there's a dog that comes downstairs.
Will drink out of it.
Yeah.
Just like we can't put her food on the ground because the dog will eat it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. He's a dog.
Yeah.
There are so many things that grief changes about. I can't say you're in like the second person view because it'll change anybody's life very differently.
Sure. Yeah.
But my life has changed more than I think it probably ever will. Is that ignorant to say?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing that will change your life that much will not be a loss, but an addition.
Yeah, like when I
have a child.
Yeah, when I have a child, when I have children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gonna be weird too, because like people talk about this all the time, which I don't know if they think I'm like a mobile therapist or something, but when they tell me these things, I'm just like, okay. But
I think it's just because we're more open about it and we speak about grief more openly, which is very
weird for a lot of people.
Yeah, and sometimes unnerving for people.
They're like...
But obviously at other times people are like, oh, I can talk to them about it.
Yeah. So a lot of people tell me, like, when they know that my dad has passed away and they know that he's not here anymore, they're like, they talk about the things that he's going to miss out on, which is the worst conversation to have with anybody.
Yeah.
And they're like, when you have kids, like, he's not... And I'm like, I don't even want to hear it.
Yeah, you don't need to remind me. Nope. That's in my head.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah. But, like, I don't know. I was used... I know you look like you're going to cry.
No, I'm thinking.
What?
My mind was somewhere else. I'm sorry. No. I was just thinking about that, like, that concept, you know, of where people talk about the things that could have been.
Oh.
We went through that before he died.
Right.
We had that ambiguous loss.
I love that term.
Yeah.
I don't, but I love it.
We experienced grief over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Pretty much from mid-April of 2018 until
August.
Yeah.
The last day of August.
Yeah, until he died. And then it was, I guess, people being like, oh, well, he's gone now, so this is the grief moment. Although for us, we were grieving for a year and 5 or so months before. Of course, I didn't realize it was grief. I didn't understand what ambiguous grief was until probably November or so of 2018.
Yeah.
And that was when I was researching traumatic brain injury. And trying to figure out what I was feeling and what was going on. And that was when I started labeling myself as his caregiver and not his wife.
Yeah.
I stopped being a wife. I wasn't a partner anymore.
No, you were.
Because I didn't have a partner, because he couldn't function as a partner. I was his caregiver.
Right. And I feel like in terms of
And there was grief associated with that.
Yeah. In terms of my research, I learned that it's weird labeling him as like a long-term.
Right, I know. Yeah,
loss.
Because there are people that have a long-term illness and a terminal long-term illness, and they can be sick for a decade or more.
We just talked to someone who had
her spouse had ALS
years.
for 30 years. It's a terminal condition. Yeah. There's no treatment.
Yeah. But they there's treatment, there's no cure. But the treatment is
for symptoms only, not for the condition.
Right. So I feel like, I had a thought. Hang on. Okay. In my research, when I researched like long-term illnesses and people who had them, ambiguous grief or ambiguous loss is something that's usually tied to that. Because the people that surround the person that is dying, or the caregivers, or the family, or someone, is going through the experience of kind of not necessarily gearing themselves up for losing that person, but just going through the process of knowing that this person is going to die is ambiguous loss in itself. So,
but there are other things tied to it too. When you
there's
lose
a bunch
that
of things
person.
tied to it,
and so like that's what led me into that thought when you were talking about how people are like, well, your dad won't be there when,
right?
You know, you have a baby,
yeah,
or whatever. Your dad, Oh, there goes my stomach.
I was wondering what that was.
It just gurgled. Your dad wasn't there when you got married.
Yeah,
but we had already. That was part of our ambiguous, and the reason that it's called ambiguous is because people never did this to me, but people could turn to you and say, well, at least you still have them, they're still alive. It's like they're literally, not literally, I need to stop saying that, but it's like they're reaching in and they're grabbing a hold of your grief and saying, no, you can't do that yet, you don't have permission, even though you really are experiencing losses in your life because of this condition, that this person has. This actually goes back to what you were speaking about with the pandemic, and grief associated with the pandemic, the losses that people have experienced. And I'm not just talking about the obvious loss of life that happened during the pandemic, but
loss of jobs,
loss of home, loss of stability, loss of being able to see an elder, a parent, a grandparent, seeing your healthcare professional on the basis that you might need, that's required for you. Just all of those things that happen, people in nursing homes and not being able to see them, or only being able to see them through a window.
Yeah.
And then I still follow up with the dementia community, and those losses actually exacerbating and aggravating the progression of the condition of the person, because they're not having the personal connection, and they're actually deteriorating mentally much more quickly.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't healthy for anyone
to be alone,
to be isolated like that. And they weren't necessarily alone when they were even in a group setting, although they are and they're not. It depends upon the environment.
Yeah.
But it's just not healthy.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of loss associated with that.
And I remember during my capstone presentation, when you explained the term ambiguous loss to somebody else, my friend who was researching how the funeral industry affects, how the funeral industry
make money
off of people being sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you telling that term to them.
And she was like, but I don't really have a right to grieve yet. And I'm like, no.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. Because this individual was not raised by their parent.
No, they weren't.
They were raised by their grandparent. And they're watching those elderly people in their life deteriorating, losing function, not being able to walk the same way, not being able to stand up straight. Yeah. And it hurts her. She feels grief. She feels the loss of that. And she's like, but, they're still here. And I'm like, no, you're denying yourself an emotional experience that you don't have to deny yourself. You're allowed to feel what you feel.
Yeah, because, it was really annoying for me when I would tell people about my experiences with it. And, let's see. Most of what I keep referring to this, but I'm always going to refer to it because I'm proud of it. Most of my photo series for my capstone was about the way that grief looks and can look, because it's super deceiving.
Yep.
And a lot of people were amazed, and for some reason, that I wasn't bawling my eyes out all the time after my dad passed away.
Or that the people in your photo series didn't look depressed. Or sad, or whatever people thought that depression or sadness should, quote unquote, look like, as opposed to what it does, look like, and what grief can actually look like.
Because grief does not have one face.
Right.
It does not have one age, one gender, or one singular form. That is those are the two first sentences in my artist statement. Because it's true.
Right.
And it was really interesting just to meet these people and have them be genuinely confused as to why I was not a puddle of myself all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I know, I'm not going to speak for them, but you know who I'm talking about. This person lost someone very recently in February or something. They went to high school with them, but they hadn't spoken in a while.
Right.
And so they had a little bit of a disconnect, but they still talked here and there, but they were really good friends when they were in school together. And this person died by suicide. And this person told me that they felt like they weren't allowed to grieve.
They needed permission to grieve because they hadn't seen them in a while.
They needed that permission to grieve because they hadn't seen them in a while. They hadn't talked in a while. They weren't as close as they used to be.
Yeah, don't do that to yourself.
Which is, totally bull. Like, that's not fair to you.
Yeah.
That's not fair to really, it's not fair to you. Because the way that it affects you is not going to be the way that it affects another person.
Yeah.
But because of, like, how people were expecting this person to be, like, to react to it, he felt that damn it, I said the pronouns. It's too late. He felt that he needed to uphold that because of that distance that was put between them. Because there were people who were surprised that he was as upset as he was, even though they hadn't talked in a while. Because people would tell him, "Oh, I didn't think you were that close to him. I didn't realize this would affect you so much." And he was like, "But I'm sad. Right. He used to be a really good friend of mine. And I feel like I can't grieve for him because of these expectations that people have already prematurely set out for me."
Right.
Which sucks. And I don't know why people do that.
Yeah, stop doing that.
I don't know why people do that.
If you're out there and you're listening to this and you put expectations on people regarding grief, stop doing it.
Yeah. Because, like...
Grief is not only related to death.
No.
It's related to loss in general. You can grieve.
A breakup.
And grief is different.
Yeah. It's like... Okay.
But it's a valid emotional experience. I don't know why we keep trying to strip it away from people. I guess because it's ugly. I mean, it's not like, woohoo, today's... My grief is really intense today.
It's the B-side.
It is. It's the B-side. There it is. Yep.
And I... Like, part of, like, when I was doing the research of it, and I researched into Kubler-Ross with the whole 5 stages of grief and stuff like that, and I know that she came out later and said that this actually isn't how, like, grief happens. This isn't the order that things can happen in.
There is no order.
Yeah, but the fact that there was an order in the first place bothers me. Because that's a guideline that a lot of people follow. Because that's something that makes people feel like there's structure to what they're feeling when there just won't be.
Well, I think people want that structure.
Yeah, because it's something to fall back on.
Yeah. And we talked about this actually in... Kes and I both attend an ALS grief support group once a month.
I love those people.
Yeah, they're wonderful people. And not in this month's support group, but in the last month's support group, we had briefly touched on this topic of people's expectations regarding the particular conditions that your father suffered from, and that people want to believe that it's. When people hear about it, they're like, "Oh, that's genetic."
Yeah.
And we're always like, "Well, yeah, pretty much no, not entirely, only some of the time, and not even half the time."
Right.
And it's the same thing when it comes to, that's like a form of grief. I think it's a way of people protecting themselves from grief. Like what happened with people trying to deny this other individual of their right to grieve someone that they hadn't seen in a while or didn't know as well as they used to, because they want to believe that there's structure to these things. They want to believe that there's a pathway that's followed and then it's clean and it's cut and it's done.
Yeah.
Because it gives them security. They don't want to believe that the ugliness can happen to them or to anyone.
Yeah. And
But that's not the way emotion works.
No.
Yeah.
And I always say I feel like when I start a sentence. I've known like a lot of people just in general who like we've said earlier, like tie grief specifically to death and losing somebody in that manner. But it's
so much more than that.
Yeah. And
like there are people that contact us and reach out on the anniversary of his death.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. You finish what you were gonna say first.
You know, and I remember after he died, you coming to me and saying, I think people are expecting me to cry, and then you stopped, and I'm like, you don't have it in you. And you were like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, of course not. We've been crying for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cried out.
Yep.
I did not have it in me to cry again. I guess, and that was part of that constant grief that we were experiencing.
Yep.
All of these losses. It was one thing after another. Things that are tied to a financial loss, you know. You lost your car, so we lost a mode of transportation. It destroyed our credit. I was trying not to lose another car. I mean, barely hanging on to this other vehicle just so I could get him to doctor's appointments. You know, not being able to rent an apartment even, much less, you know, buy another house.
Yeah.
It was just overwhelmingly presently there all the time, so that by the time he passed, I felt a release with an S like in Sam.
Yeah, not a relief.
No, it was not a relief. No, because I didn't want him to be gone.
No, yeah.
But I was tired.
I
was physically tired. I was mentally tired. I was emotionally worn out.
I kind of feel like, oh, there we go. I said it again.
Mm-hmm.
When I've spoken to people about how they feel or how they felt with experiencing grief, I've met a good deal of them who say that it feels like a weight on their back. That wasn't my case. Because when before Dad passed away and having to help him and take care of him and things like that, that was the weight.
Yeah, because it's scary.
Yeah, but when he passed away, oddly enough, that weight kind of got lifted off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, and I'm not saying this as a way of saying that it was a comfort. I'm saying that in a way that was something that was very quickly and very abruptly ripped away from me. That was a weight that I knew that I didn't have to carry anymore because I didn't have to do it. And
we didn't have to watch him go through it. If he had his choice, he would have ended his own life sooner and not suffered the way he did at the end.
Right.
And there are places that offer what's called death with dignity or end-of-life options, different states. It's approved, but you have to undergo a psychiatric evaluation that he never would have passed, even though he was fully aware of everything that was going on, and he participated in the decision-making up until the point that he could no longer communicate, which was just barely, maybe 2 weeks. Before he died. He could still shake his head yes and no, or he could say yeah, but he couldn't shake his head no, so if he didn't answer, I knew it was a no. If he said yeah, I knew it was a yes. He wouldn't have been able to have those choices, but he would have made that option. He would have made that choice. He would have taken that choice had the option been given to him.
We never come with tissues. Ever.
No, it's true.
I was telling that to I don't know why. I know why, and it was really fun and great, but I decided to book a shoot the morning of my graduation. And I booked a photo shoot the morning of my graduation for somebody else who was graduating in the class before me. And I got there, and our allergies were killing us. And I told her, I was like, there is one thing that I never come prepared with, and that's tissues. I come with everything else that I can possibly fit in my camera bag for a shoot, and I never bring tissues for one reason or another.
They were in the car, though.
Oh, I know they were in the car. Does that mean I remembered? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a funny moment. I think I want to kind of close this out by saying that it's, overall, in general, umbrella term, it does get better. And not necessarily in the way of it feeling better, but...
It feels softer.
It feels softer, but also you learn how you grieve more.
Hopefully. If it doesn't feel softer, then that should be a sign to you that you need to seek out professional help.
Yeah. Like, it'll feel softer. It'll be, like, you'll learn how you grieve, so you know your patterns generally. You know what you're comfortable with your boundaries as you go along with it more.
My grandmother died on Thanksgiving Day, 1986.
Yeah.
Shortly after my 16th birthday. And to this day, every year on Thanksgiving, I remember being in hospice the day she died, watching the family go in and out of her room, seeing her, seeing the fish tank in the hospice, in the inn at St. Peter's, which is still there. I was there when your dad passed away. And so just, that's just an example. I'm 50.
Yeah.
That was 34 years ago, and I still think of it.
Yeah.
Every single Thanksgiving.
Overall, it gets easier. But it's because you learn.
Right.
And it's because...
I wouldn't say it's easy in general. It's a hard process to go through.
No, yeah, 100%.
Here's the one thing that I think we all need to remember.
What's that?
Everyone does it.
Oh, yeah.
It's literally, it's like breathing.
Yep. Blinking.
Yeah. Using, producing waste, It's
something that, I mean, really, I think it's something that's supposed to happen.
It's a normal function of life, and we need to embrace it, I guess, more. You don't have to have, like, a grief party.
No. Which I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, and I liked your dad's memorial because it wasn't so somber and funerary, which is nice. We can avoid those things because we're not tied to religion, And
also they're really expensive.
But it's part of every single living thing's life, anything that has a memory.
Yeah. You know what else?
Because animals grieve. Dogs grieve, and elephants definitely grieve, and
I know.
Yeah, so
it makes me sad thinking about elephants.
Well, mammals, I guess we should say. We know that mammals grieve, and birds, some of those other animals. It's just a normal thing, and we need to let it be more normal.
You know what else is a normal process of life that I wish was more normalized?
What?
Death.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm... Yeah.
It's not taboo.
It's not.
No matter how much people think...
Or how they don't want to talk. You know what? Not talking about it makes it worse.
Right. Because then you're taking away that exposure to something that... You're taking away that knowledge, that exposure, that... Just that. And
trying to hide something that's...
Slapping a sticker on it that says, don't touch. It doesn't help anybody.
No, it really doesn't.
No. And... Like, okay, good example. I learned my basic skills of math by walking through the cemeteries.
Yep.
And adding and subtracting the years that people were born to the year that they they died. And people...
And then trying to figure out how long they were alive.
How long they were alive.
Yeah, your dad and I did that with you.
I love cemeteries, and people think it's bizarre.
And creepy.
But it's not because of the cemetery itself. It's because of the fact that there's dead people there. And it surrounds death. And they think it's weird because
Because we hang out in cemeteries and we enjoy it.
Right.
And we appreciate the beauty, the sculpture, the layout. We talk about the way they're laid out. We talk about the roads.
We research some of the people that are in there. Like, if they're, like, a prominent enough figure.
Like, why is this person's monument so big? Who were they? Let's look them up.
Why are they in a mausoleum? Like, how did that happen? I think it's cool. Yeah. My poor husband doesn't think so. He thinks it's weird. But that's because...
to do with, with culture and the way he was raised. We need to that's a part of bringing death, more into the discussion of everyday life.
I remember...
I'm not saying people, I want to die.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
And I think people misinterpret that. I just want it to be something that people can discuss and feel more comfortable with. So that they don't feel like they have to hide their emotions. Maybe we wouldn't have ambiguous grief if we allowed people to discuss these things more openly and feel the things that they feel.
I remember, like, my original thought when we still lived in Cincinnati was I was going to get married in a cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
Because not only was it gorgeous.
Right. Spring Grove.
Oh, I love it there.
Yeah.
But also because that's one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah.
And it's fine that didn't happen. But I still really appreciate and really love cemeteries just for the history. And like you said, the architecture, the sculptures, and the roots that I built into cemeteries of learning how to count.
Yeah. And reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But grief is okay. Grief is good, in fact. And it
sucks.
Oh my God, it sucks.
And it's good. It's good for you to experience it and go through the whole course of emotions. It's perfectly normal for things to come back and make you feel sad. But things will trigger your grief.
And
you don't get over it.
No. That's not a thing.
Nope.
But you will learn so much about you. And you will learn so much, even about the people around you.
If you're willing to take that journey. Yeah.
It's not going to be fun.
No.
But
you'll be better because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm better because of it. I feel like I'm a lot better because of it. Especially for the time period of how and when this happened to me. Because I am a young being.
Yeah.
And usually people in my age group are much more impressionable when they're young because obviously we're still growing and learning and everything like that.
Your brain's not fully developed yet.
Yeah.
People think of you as an adult, but in terms of human development, you're not fully into adulthood yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this experience, I don't necessarily know if I would be thankful for it. But I am, which is weird, I know. But I think I am thankful for the ability to know that I grew from this experience instead of being destroyed by it.
Right.
I think that's the way that I would put it.
I know that people talk a lot about the phrase broken. And we can talk about that sometime when we talk about grief.
Yeah.
They say things like, I'm not broken. I'm stronger, or I'm not. It didn't break me.
Makes you stronger.
Yeah, I'm broken. I'm absolutely broken.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm still okay. I can not reassemble because you can't get back to where you were before, but I can recreate from the pieces.
The whole exercise of like taking a piece of paper, crumpling it up, and then trying to flatten it back out to what it used to be. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Because that piece of paper has rips and tears and crinkles and everything like that. You are that piece of paper when you go through grief.
When you go through life.
Yeah, when you go through life, you're right.
Yeah.
But it's a part, at least in my case, it's a part of me that I have come to learn to appreciate and love and just be not necessarily at peace with, because grief is not peaceful, but to be...
I think it can be.
I believe that it can be. I just don't know how to do it yet necessarily.
Maybe you just haven't reached that stage yet.
Probably.
Right.
But it's a piece of me that I have come to be in good standing with.
Yeah.
Really.
You're okay with it?
Yeah, I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah. Yep.
It makes me nauseous sometimes, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I think if you can be okay with it, you can be stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that might mean for each person.
Yeah.
And maybe that just means that you can get through the day.
Mm-hmm. And then if you get through that one, you can probably most certainly get through the next.
That's right.
Okay. And on that note, this has been an episode of Under the Sun and Moon with Michelle and Kes.
That's right.
We will see you guys next time.
Remember, we won't see them. They'll hear us.
Shoot. You guys will hear us next time. We'll get video one day.
Yeah.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.